let's have a go at making these super cute Kimmi dolls. It is January, or as we're going to call it, Japanuary, and I just want to do some Japanese themed inspired type projects, and today we're needle felting this Kimmi doll. So I've started with a piece of fleece around about 30 centimeters in length. I'm using the World of Wool carded Corriedale slivers, but you can pretty much use anything you have lying around. Bats felt a little bit easier, and what I've done, whatever length of fibre, however much fibre you use, I'm just taking a third off of it and felting it into a ball to make the head. If you haven't already, check out, and you need more advice, check out my video on how to felt a ball. But basically I'm just felting away. I'm using my 38 twist needle for this. Just use your favorite felting needle. If you're not sure which needle to use, I'd buy a selection of a few different types and test them out and see which you prefer, because your wool and your felting style will make a big difference. But as this is a tiny project, I'm going with a fairly small needle, which is a high gauge, so 38 or 40 gauge, and felting it away until it's not totally firm but fairly firmed. And then your 2/3 of the fibre that you've got left, I'm rolling it into a long sausage tube, as you can see, and then focusing a bit on the bottom. I'm going to want the bottom to be flat, so I'm doing that by taking the needle and stabbing it in and out in perpendicular to how the flat bottom's going to be. And we're making this a kind of circular tube with a curve at the top for the head and shoulders. So it's flat on the bottom and it curves up to the neck. We're making a kind of pawn shape, really. As you can see, I'm squishing it as I need to and just manipulating the shape until I'm happy how it is, and making sure to spend a bit of time on the bottom because I want it to be able to stand up. Now this is such a great project for a beginner because it's fairly quick and easy. It's working on a fairly small scale, but at the same time there's a lot of little techniques that you're learning. You're learning some basic shapes, how to manipulate the needle, the fibre, working in some great detail. So it's actually a great fun project, and it really takes only about an hour to get something cool. So once you've got your two shapes, your ball and your flat bottomed curvy tube, I can't think of a way to describe that. Once you've got them relatively firm but not fully felted, I'm felting them together. I'm felting the head onto the body by felting up from the body into the head and down from the head into the body. If you're having trouble getting this to stick, you can use a little bit of fleece in between the two, but if you haven't felted too firmly, it should felt in no problem, and felt away until they're nice and securely felted, and you have basically a kind of pawn shape like this. Now we're going to work on her clothing, and in this case you can let your imagination run riot, but I'm just giving you an example to start off, and if you stay to the end I've got some more for you to see. So I'm making a kind of V in the black. This is to show basically where her kimono is wrapping round. So it's a V that's going to be off slightly to the side of her head. So you kind of imagine where her head's going to be and felt in that whole area in black. You could also make this bottom piece fully in black if you wanted, or any other colour. You can make these in any colour. I'm just making her mainly black with a little bit of red and white doll, but they can be any colours you want. Green, purple, anything at all. Just making sure to cover everything that you're going to see here. I'm not bothering to put the black on the bottom because the bottom won't be seen. You can if you wish to. And trying to make sure there's no white bits poking through, and keeping a neat line where that V is. You can see from the other camera angle, you can sometimes get a better view of what that V is. Adding little pinches more black if need to make sure that this is fully covered. Now honestly, this project doesn't have to take you more than about an hour, so it's the perfect thing to practice in front of the tally. And once you get going and your imagination starts firing up, you can have a little army of little Kimmi dolls. And these are, in the Japanese style, these are generally made out of wood, but I think they're great fun to do. Now I'm just giving her an ever so simple hairstyle by felting a straight line along near the top, keeping this as straight as I can to be her fringe, and then over the back and down the sides. Now you can felt in any way you want. If you make the hair a little bit thicker and you can felt a kind of more overhanging line, you can felt it more flush into the head as I'm doing here with just a thin piece of black, and you can make the hair any shape you want. I'd advise having a quick flick around Google for some images of Kimmi dolls and images of Japanese art, and just get inspired by that, what you want the hair to be. But with her, I'm going with two little cute bunches eventually, as you'll see in a little bit. Spend the time here making sure that everything's nice and smoothly felted on, or your black's nice and smooth, because this makes it much easier to get the detailing done. The more fluffy this is, the more when you felt in the detail, it's going to vanish into the doll. And yeah, I can just see there's a few patches, but they show it more on the camera. So with the red, I'm making a rectangle that's going to be like her kimono belt. Again, look at images of Japanese figures and Kimmi dolls and geishas and all sorts of things, and see what you think you could make this look like. But this is just a simple image that I'm doing just now. As you can see, even just now, it you can imagine what it looks like, but I'm making some thread by twisting off tiny bits of white fleece, and this is to add some detailing in. So you just gently twist and pull, and this makes like a super thin thread. And from this, I'm going to make the collar of our kimono here, going from where the V is, where it's wrapped, and coming all the way around the back of her neck, and then back round to her front again, adding on any little extra bits of thread as you go. I would spend a good deal of time making sure this is nice and neat, so there isn't free wispy bits, but just for demonstration, I was going a little bit quick here. And once you've got her collar in, I'm going to add her arms, which are coming from the collar down, covering the edge of the belt, well, the belt disappearing into her arms, and just making a loop downwards. There's a lot more imagination than actual graphically wonderful here, but just making a loop that's going to be her arms. And obviously we do one side, and then guess what? We have to do the other side. So again, another piece of fleece coming from her collar all the way down, her kimono belt going behind it. And you can angle the arms at any kind of angle you want, straight down, slightly forwards, anything you think looks cute. And just making some more thread to do some more detailing. As you'll see later, there's more or less detailing you can do. There's easier or more difficult you can do. You can make your thread thicker or thinner to put in even more detail. I'm just drawing around the kimono belt to make it pop a little bit as well. This has given everything a bit of a cartoony feel also. And felting this in. Now, because I haven't rolled my fleece all that tight into a thread, there's some stray wispy bits of white that I'm trying to poke in. And at the end of the kimono belt, I've just done a line down to the bottom to give the impression of how her kimono's folded over. You know, it wraps one side and then the other. So that's just to give an idea, an impression of that, a feeling of that. And trying to felt in the wispy areas to make it a little bit neater. If I'd have rolled my thread a little bit better, then it would be a little bit of a cleaner line, but this is just a demonstration for you all. So neatening it up, felting this away as much as I need to. And now, I just like putting these little flowers on all my Kimmi dolls. I have no idea why. I'm just pulling off 4 pinches of really tiny pinches of fleece, and you roll it between your fingers into a ball and then backwards and forwards for the last second, and that gives you a kind of seed, an elongated shape. And then I'm felting the 4 on in a circle with the narrow points towards the center and poking out the way. Now, in general, when you're doing things like this, you would use either 3, 5 or 9 little balls to make something, but for some reason I felt like making 4. Multiples of 3, well, odd numbers are more traditional, but I just felt 4 makes a cute little flower. It's just something I started doing. And for the eyes, we're going with slightly bigger pinches that we roll into a ball and then backwards and forwards for a second to make an eye shape. And I'm just felting this on and gently manipulating it with my needle to make a kind of crescent shape rather than just a half moon shape. But again, you can do as much detail as you want with the eyes. You could felt in different colours, open eyes, beautiful anime eyes. You can felt in more features of the face, mouths, nose if you're feeling really brave, but I would totally leave noses. And another thing that makes these super cute to finish is a little bit of blush on the cheeks. You could do this with using actual blush, actual eyeshadow, or chalks, pastels, or just felting on a little bit of colour in either red or pink. So tiny bit of fleece, roll it loosely into a ball and then felt it in place. And this is just slightly below the eyes and gives the cute impression of blushing. And I'm getting a couple more pinches of black, just trying to get these even as I can, and rolling them into a rough tube shape. You'll see what I'm aiming for in a second. Just manipulating it between my fingers. It's really sort of an elongated bowl shape, but it can be any shape you want. This is going to be the bunches for her hair. Now I was swithering between making these as little buns or making these as actual little bunches, but I just went as a mixture of the two, and then popping them on either side of her head, poking out the side, which I think just gives such a cute, along with everything else, with the flushed cheeks and the little turned eyes that give the idea that she's smiling, and her cute little hair. It just makes her look like a little kid, a little cute, gorgeous little Kimmi doll kid. So felting these in place and just generally firming them up, evening them up with extra felting, and then just to give extra definition and cuteness, 2 thick pinches of red fleece, and I'm wrapping it around the base of these buns, pigtails, whatever you imagine they are. And just felting that as a line round. So that's like the bauble, the holder, the ribbon, whatever it's going to be that's holding her hair up in that position. And that's her. And go with whatever your imagination tells you with these dolls. There's so many different types you can make. And here's just an example of some of the ones I've made. This one with her long bunches almost looks like an Indian, American Indian. And on the back I've added a little more to the kimono belt, just with a ball and a flower in the middle as well, as you can see on this one. I've made that doll with a little more of a shape, and one's in red, and I've made larger parent dolls, a little more detail on the guy. The woman, the mother's kimono belt is much easier. It's just felted on in the shape like this, and her hair is a little bob with a bun, and I've made a little flat ball kind of for a little flower on her. And you can see with the guy, I've felted his robes in with black lines, black thread, and I've even made his little bald head with wispy hair. I just thought that was super cute. And let your imagination go crazy. Here I've done Frankenstein's monster and the Bride of Frankenstein. These were so much fun to make. Frank's little suits all felted in grey thread, and the Bride of Frankenstein has her wavy white streaks of hair and her little wedding dress with a train down in the back. They were so much fun to make. So I hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget, come back for more felting videos and share anything you make. Thank you so much.